Yeah, I'm really satisfied with the DEVOPS because it improves my magic. Great, okay, now let's continue with the presentation. Our next speaker is a service program manager from Computer Associates Technology. And I bet we are going to hear some interesting lessons about, oh, am I on the right page? Yes, about the Forrester study. Yeah?
DEVOPS.
Okay, okay. I might have some wrong data here, but anyway. Please welcome on stage Mr. Jan Walta.
Thank you. It will be very difficult to beat this.
You do your own math.
Yeah, I will do my own magic, exactly. So let me just put this on. Yes. DevOps adoption. That's my magic. I got the clover leaf, so that's just for good luck and also part of the story. My name is Jan Walta. I work as a program manager at CA Technologies, and I'm responsible for the delivery of service virtualization, dev test, release automation, test data management, and it used to be test case optimizer, but it's now called Agile Requirements Designer. And all the abbreviations below is not to show how much I know, but just to show that I'm waterfall as well as agile minded. And I have some 15 years of experience with waterfall projects, but also some DevOps programs and some DevOps projects. Let me show you first this short clip. If it works.
Weet waar je aan begint. Lotto, het grootste risico om miljonair te worden.
Lotto, the gambling, the biggest chance to become a millionaire. Oh, just one minute. Let's see. What is adoption? Some time ago, somebody mentioned survival of the fittest is not, you don't have to be the strongest one, you don't have to be the most intelligent one, you have to be the one that can adopt to change the best, Charles Darwin. And that is what a lot of companies didn't do the past few decades. There are a lot of big, strong companies from the 80s and 90s that don't exist anymore. I don't want to mention Nokia. These companies. Uber, Airbnb, the biggest hotel chain without owning any beds, without owning any resources that clean rooms. Netflix, perfect example of backwards integration, not only delivering an infrastructure where you can show movies made by HBO or Disney, but also creating their own stuff. And I like Amazon and Google even better because Amazon was founded in 1994. So it's already here for 22 years and they really evolved in creating, seeing what's happening. That's what adoption is all about. For CA, adoption is not only having a flashy tool, buying a new car, it's also about a cultural change. Maybe if you are a millionaire, you don't need to get your groceries from the shop. Or maybe you need to live in a different kind of neighborhood where you really can test your car on speed. It is a cultural change that has numerous stops. because it's not one size fits all. It's not a waterfall kind of approach of we think that the market, and we're not that, how do you say, confident what will happen next year. No, we will see what happens. Adopt to change, be resilient to that. NCA, we are a technology company, so we have nice cars, I would say, and we want to make sure that our products are used in the best way possible to add value to our customers. Adoption is not just installation of a tool, not just buying that tool. It's not body shopping that you can have somebody that will do the work for you. And it's not just implementation. It's really all about make sure that, is this the best car for this neighborhood, for instance? Do you really need to have this? Yeah, you can make speed between speed bumps, but then it takes a while before you can have that speed bump. At CA, we believe that the adoption, any adoption is set into 3 phases. And we start off with, just the discovery. What are we talking about? What is the best value? With waterfall approach, you were thinking about where do I want to end within a year from now. But now we look at, okay, what can we do to add value right now and not within 6 months? That is the discovery phase, and one of the most important things that we will deliver in that discovery phase is a heat map. And it is actually a prioritization of virtual services that will really add value. And then we start, of course, we have some training. We just want to make sure that you understand our car. I know I just drive shift stick, but those Ferraris have those flippers near the steering wheel. I don't know how to drive it, so we teach you. And that's the easy part. The more difficult part starts with Sprint Zero. And Sprint Zero in Scrum, that's where you really lay the foundation of your project, your first engagement, your first sprint. To go on to the second sprint, third sprint, etc., etc. And each sprint we can deliver some stuff that add value right now. The return on investment, that's the nice way about Scrum, DEVOPS, is to start delivering value right away, instead of waiting for 6 months and hope that the world didn't change by that. Along the way, we will decrease our engagement, and we have that knowledge transfer so that the customer knows what he is talking about. And the 3 steps are, we lead and the customer shadows. We will show you how it's done. And slowly but surely, you are learning how to use the tool in the best way possible. And the next steps, let's do it together. Maybe 3, 4 engagements. Let's do it together so that you're sure that you know the basics. You can do that, but when you become more difficult, turn on the heat, for instance. Maybe it's a difficult part. We can show you that. And finally, we are in the final step, and then we will coach you and make sure that maybe some reviewing, some coaching, that kind of stuff. And then there's also the last 2 steps. Step 2 and 3 is all finding the next bottleneck. CA is a technology company, so we talk a lot about technology, about infrastructure, about how it's set up, how should you use SV, etc., etc. But we find, and that is one of the lessons, is that it's not all about technology. It's also about people. Make sure that you have the right people, that they understand how to use the tool, that they get the proper training. Also talk about processes. Which processes are best practices? Learn from each other, learn from other customers. But the most important thing, also when we talk about DevOps, is organization. How are we organized? Just again, the nice car in a fancy neighborhood. If you think about speed bumps as the silos, you can speed up between speed bumps, but then you need to slow down and have the handover to the next one. If you are organized in a better way, in a more DevOps kind of way, it would be more easier to make sure that that speed is continued throughout the street in this case. And if all 4 areas are more or less balanced, then you can have real true value to your customer or to your company. These 3 processes, people and technology are more the traditional 3 areas that when we discuss these kinds of things about change, but especially within DevOps organization, how are we organized is a very vital and important thing. So how does DevOps really look like? That's pretty cool. If you saw a team completely focused, and the team was not, the customers here is not Miki Raikkonen or whoever is driving the car. No, it's all the team focused on what they have to do within several minutes. They practiced a lot. They succeeded in, I think, I just counted like 4 or 5 seconds. New wheels, extra gas, go ahead again. And entertain the public, because that's a real customer. So if we should have this in mind, the pit stop, and then look at waterfall, it all starts with business. Another lessons learned. Often we say, okay, we have dev, test, ops, and a customer. Now we have also a business that has an idea. And if we have that metaphor of a pit stop, and we say, okay, somebody, a manager, has an idea how we should do that pit stop. Car is already moving in, and they say, okay, maybe we should do left wheel first, and maybe right. Well, we're already lost the game. And the same thing with dev, test, and throw it all over the walls. Is then you have a pit stop that a car will move in. Then somebody does the left front wheel, steps away, goes to the right back wheel. Maybe somebody moves in and put the bolts in. Perhaps not. I don't know if we have time for that. So it will all fall together. Waterfall is not a wrong way of doing things. It's not always the best way of doing things. I've done a lot of migrations, customer data migrations. Then Agile is not always the best way to do it. Just to test if 10,000 of people can receive a letter or not, with probably not the right information on it. Migrations, you would like to do waterfall. That's my experience. Next step is, as our magician just mentioned, is Agile. And Agile is all about putting dev and test more closely, working closely together, but still very important, ops is out of the equation, and also business is out of the equation. There's still a brick wall between them. So what are we doing here? We are sub-optimizing the different silos. In Waterfall we try to optimize the test silo, the dev silo, maybe operation silo. Here we have the first step of bringing 2 silos together, because we understand when dev and test work together, we get more output. But still, we see here 2 speed bumps that will kill all speed, yet you gain the dev and test. And that's why they came up with DevOps. And that is really ideally from idea, business idea, to even customers. I've seen companies that have test panels. and get that input from customers on the things that they developed. Not always, because it's a tricky thing, right? But this is very important. It is from business to customer. And DevOps, and if you have this in place in your heads, if you are organized in this way, it will be more easy to have the next step, or in my vision, the next step, and that is continuous delivery. That is from beginning to end, a continuous stream of enhancements, of innovation, of etc., etc. DevOps is not a technique, it's not a method, it's a way of working. Underlying DevOps, you can have Scrum or Kanban, or that kind of stuff, and even Scrum has elements of Kanban. But I and at CA we like the way of Scrum. And Scrum is all based on those four, on this manifesto with those four elements. Individuals are more important than process and tools. And for a tooling company, that's not really good, right? So the focus, if we introduce DevOps, most of the focus goes to how are we organized in the best way, interaction, a lot of brown papers across a lot of hallways in companies, a lot of post-it. I really would buy some stock of post-it notes because they are really, really gaining a lot of companies introducing the Scrum way of working. Working software, more important, and I stated more important than documentation. At a lot of companies we see we don't do any documentation anymore because we're working in a Scrum kind of way. Would that be good? I don't think so. People leave, people come and go, knowledge comes and goes, so you need to have that documentation, but it's not the most important thing. So it's not that operations says, they always, at least when I come with my project, come to operations and they say, well, yeah, that's very nice. Where is your documentation? No, that's not the most important thing anymore. The most important thing is working software, and we need operations to do that. Customer collaboration. So customer in this sense is the end customer, but sometimes also the business. It's important to involve your business. The funny story is that actually in the waterfall method in the 70s, this was part of that. A regular check at each stage with your customer, are you on the right track? I don't know why, but for some reason that dropped off and it became, well, throw it in and I will catch it later after 9 months and we'll say, no, this is not what I wanted. And then this is really good for a technology company like CA, is responding to change over following a plan. If you want to respond to a change, you need to be fast. We like to automate things again. Change is all around, so you cannot grasp reality into a plan, but you still need a plan. You need to have to talk about what are you going to do, what is the next step. We'll talk about it later. The management shift should be there also, but you need to talk about things. Where are you going to go? But that doesn't mean that that is the end station. We have an idea of where we want to go, but we're not sure yet. We are sure of the first step, and we approximately know what the next step will be. But please make sure that you are taking one step at a time. This is our Scrum-based process, standard Scrum. So it all has to do with make sure that you understand what the features are. The tooling needs to, for instance, service virtualization. I'm not sure if you know anything about that, but it's important that when you virtualize services, you need to know which services you need to be virtualizing. And that needs to be in line with the product backlog. So we created our own product backlog based on the input from the development teams, or the DevOps teams. And we create those assets, and that is, a virtual service will be after 1 to 4 weeks. Normally we take 2. We can already deliver that asset. So, our best practice talked about the adoption journey, right? A 3-step approach. Learning how to use the tool, and then see what is the next constraint. Is that constraint on technology? Is that constraint on process? Might be the constraint on people. Do we have the right people, or are we organized in the best way possible? Talk about that cloverleaf approach, Scrum-based delivery, and we use squads. And squads is more like a term, the team is more fixed, and squad has some dynamic around it. I don't know why, but it's better to use it that way. It has that agility in itself. The big question is, why do we want to use DevOps? Because it's quite a change for a lot of organizations to work in a silo kind of way, and now we need to go across all silos. And we think there are 3 things. One is deliver rapidly to make sure that you have that change, to adopt to the change in reality. Higher quality, very important, because we can produce whatever we want. As developers, we can lock in all code, whatever we want, but is it then still resilient? Can we build a company on that? A company, for instance, a large bank in the Netherlands, they had a lot of problems with introducing DevOps. They did it all the way through the whole company. There was even a layoff several months ago, and they said everybody needs to contribute to adding value. That means that everybody needs to be able to maybe work on code, maybe some testing, even management. So they cut out a lot of management layers, and it's a really flat organization now. And when they began starting to use work in a DevOps kind of way, they had a lot of problems. I was a customer at that bank, and the app was out at least twice a day. And it seems like quality wasn't really on top of their mind. They thought about, we need to produce quickly, we need to be in front of everything and make sure that we are in the lead, that we are an innovative company. A lot of customers were disappointed because they had so much issues and bugs, etc. If you want to introduce DevOps to your company, then a lot of times you see, and I think maybe a lot of you are working in a Scrum team, maybe. Bottom up. We are going to sit next to testers. We invite our ops guys, and we're going to work in a DevOps kind of way, in a Scrum kind of way. And that is where the real problem is, because that cultural journey is really difficult to have that change bottom up. So we need to have it top down. A lot of problems is lying in the fact that the requirements delivered by the business, there's a lot of discussion most of the time, are not good enough. They are more like epics. They're really big. So they're struggling, the team's struggling with getting the right output, and of course it's never right, and they blame DevOps, they blame the tooling, they blame everything. But it's all about a company having a vision. For instance, we would like to have a new website that is in the top 3, blah, 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 blah. From that, there will be a roadmap. And that is maybe not what you would like to see in the agile kind of way, but this is what I'm talking about. You need to have a plan. You need to have a vision of where you want to go. You need to explain to people what your idea is, where you want to go. But that doesn't mean, and that is very difficult for companies or management layers, is that it's not always, you cannot predict the future. So there might be some changes in that. From that roadmap, and that roadmap already stated some priority settings. We want to do this first, this big piece first, then we want to do that, then we want to do that. You have a product backlog managed by a product manager. And that, if you want to be that kind of guy, is really tough. That is the worst position in a company that you can have. Because you need to make sure that you manage all these stakeholders, business stakeholders, marketing, sales, etc. IT, support, infrastructure, etc. Customers sometimes, even competitors. There are departments in companies that are completely focused on what is the competition doing. You need to have that input as well, because all that lists the priority settings of the product backlog. And from that huge product backlog, all the teams will gather bits and pieces and work on that. Actually, I don't know if you know SAFe, the Scale Agile Framework, this is a simplified version of that. And why is that? Because SAFe can be very big, perceived very big, tries to cover everything. But the most important thing is that business should have a vision, should have a roadmap, should have the right epics, so you can, as a developer, as a development team, can produce value, because that's what it's all about. Yeah, well, I just mentioned that introducing DevOps, I always focus on the teams, but for management it's always also very difficult to understand, because they need to manage in a different kind of way. I did a DevOps program at a large telco company in the Netherlands, and the biggest challenge was to convince management that they should not ask about time or cost, because costs are linear. You have a team and that's what it costs. Maybe it will be a little bit down because of holidays or whatever. It's not important anymore. You decide how much sprints you can give us. And you also then know how much it will cost. We cannot say, let's leave that test, or have a decision on, do we really need a security test, or do we really need a load test? They have asked me that sometimes. I said, well, it's your decision, these are the risks, and then so and so. I said, well, let's just go for it. And it was down within 5 minutes. Quality is fixed. The definition of done, as we call it, that is a list of criteria that everything that we put into production needs to have a check in the box. We need to have a load test, we need to have a security test, we need to have this, that, so and so. So quality is fixed. That doesn't mean you need to have the highest quality, but at least have an understanding, this is the basic stuff that we need to know. The definition of done, by the way, is not fixed. We need to learn, we need to improve. That means that we can adjust as well. For management, that's also very difficult, because they say, okay, we need to have a dev, test, and ops team. We're just starting out. You have 3 ops guys 100% available. You have 1 tester and 2 developers. Now, that's not the right balance. If you ever worked in a Scrum team or in a DevOps team, you know that you start off with developing and testing, and later on you have ops involved. Maybe not right from the start. They need to be involved right from the start, but doing actual work will scale up and development will scale down. But this causes for management a really big headache, because they say that this program that I was talking about, they said, okay, Jan, we would like to have a customer care system used with 10,000 people. We would like to have it done by the end of the year. By the way, the budget is also fixed. You have 1 million euros. And you need to copy that, because it's an old system, old stuff. We want to have it exactly replaced by a new thing. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. Not even in waterfall with all those, everything was fixed. I said, what we're going to do is, we're going to ask which features are used now the most, because that will add most value. So, of course, the 80% rule, 20% of the stuff in the system was used by the majority of the people, and 80% that was there was used by maybe one person 1 time a year, or maybe 3 times. So what we did is we completed it, by the way, within budget, well within budget and within time frame, but we didn't deliver the complete system because it wasn't necessary. And then there was the trade-off and the discussion about, what do you want now? Do you want to have all those features that we have listed here on the product backlog? Do you want to have it in? It will take you another year, maybe, or half a year. Do you want to invest in that? Because we as a team don't see the return on investment. You need to invest this much of time and effort of a team, but it will not deliver that much. So it's really a mind switch. In the end, if you keep in mind, and that is the biggest lessons learned for me, if you keep in mind these 4 elements, if something fails, if something is not working, don't point directly at the technology. Don't point directly at organization, people, or processes, but have a look on where is it not working for us. It's just as easy as maybe a printer is not on the right floor, and you need to walk every time you need to print out something, you need to walk downstairs to get it. Make sure that the printer is there. Has nothing to do with technology, has nothing to do with the processes, it's just moving the printer. Don't overcomplicate it, but make sure that have this in mind and find the way that works the best for you and learn. Continuous learn and improve so you can be the best you can. Any questions? At least one, because I get a free beer if I get one question. 5 is also good. 10 maybe. One question.
You have those marvelous slides yourself, or did you get any help? Because those slides were just awesome.
Thank you very much. No, I did it myself. But these were actually, I'm continuous improving as well. So this was a collection of several slides for several customers put together. And this is, and probably next week it will be different again. Because I'm agile. Thank you. Any other questions, maybe? He's paying. And just get one beer now. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. And now we're going to have a short break. You can